Oh, I got that.
She got both.
It's true. It's true. All right. Today we're talking about a sensitive subject, and I think it's perfect weather for it. Honestly, although it's slowed down, I feel like it knew we were going to be talking about the apocalypse that was, and decided it would be the apocalypse today.
Yes.
But luckily it stopped. So COVID, which is all of our favorite topics. I can't believe it's been 5 years since COVID, but at the same time, I kind of can. But we still blame so much on COVID, and so much came out of just that time period of life. And I kind of just want to go through some reflection, some conversation about how COVID changed education. And Christina, you kind of already started talking before we turned on the camera here, but I do and have always been curious if the time that our state went into lockdown, is that one of those like memorable moments? Like, do you remember where you were, what you were doing when we went into lockdown?
Absolutely. Like I was saying, 1 minute I was singing, dancing, saying, we're not closing down, we're fine. Next morning I was all, please turn around, we'll see you soon. So I think that to me was all it was a whole different world at that point.
Yeah.
Everything in Cosmo world was crazy for a little bit.
It's funny, nobody thought probably we were closing down. For some, I think we were behind. So New York had closed down, California, all the bigger states where they were having mass issues. And I think we felt maybe untouched here in Grand Junction, or maybe I'm wrong in that assumption. So I feel like maybe we thought we weren't gonna, and then
one day we just were
loose.
right. The next minute we're all level unlocked.
Yeah.
You know?
So how did you guys handle it? Anyone can kind of jump in. How did you handle knowing that you've got the orders, your students may not come back to class?
1 second at a time.
Yeah, we took it step by step. We sent emails. Of course, we had people show up, so we're like, sorry. And then Mark developed, programs to keep us going, and we went online, and we were behind the green curtain.
Yeah. I thought that was the craziest part of it. It's just that, hey, we no longer are here, but we want our students to still be engaged. Figure it out.
It was different for us because we never really shut down. We were deemed essential, so we were here half the time and then at home half the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do remember that.
And then they moved to where you could have X number of people in a X dimension.
Yeah.
So we would bring the students in, rotate.
Take their temperature, ask them if they've
that
pooped all day, you know what I mean? You got diarrhea, my friend. Like, it just got real personal questions, and had to zap them everywhere you went, and just kind of, you were scared to cough or have a tickle in your throat because you didn't know what was coming afterwards. The whole restaurant, the whole class. It was crazy.
How did you feel like you managed your students, since we kind of jumped forward to that, manage your students coming back from that initial, we're online, we're out of here, and now all of a sudden you can come back, you have to wear masks, you have to get zapped?
It was, at least in my opinion, in our group, it was difficult to get them to become responsible again, because it was jammies and hot chocolate and online. And then it's like, no, you have to wear and you have to be here. Trying to get kick-started again. It's like, trying to get up for work Monday morning. It was tough.
After a long vacation.
Ours were ready to come back, so we didn't have that problem. We just had to split them. We had 2-day Mondays and Tuesdays. We had Wednesday, Thursdays. So we had 2 groups.
Yeah.
But no, they were ready.
See, ours was, you can't really teach haircuts and colors and all that online. You can't check it, you can't watch them. So we had to get very creative and drop it off here, pick up this here. And then fast forward, well, we are at our program, so we have the term sheet, and you still have to get this term sheet done in the amount of time. So having them take multiple pictures, sending videos, being online if they fell asleep. I remember one did, and we put on the air horn, and so that way she jumped, and then we said, wake up, But bringing them back was hard. I mean, they were excited because now they could do the cuts and all this that we were talking about prepping for, getting ready for. But now you had to do that term sheet and it had to be done. But now you're doing it, and I think we were in an hour and a half. So you got hour and a half. So I was personally teaching the same class 4 times a day. So I get done in an hour and a half and turn around and do it again and again. And then trying to make sure that people were doing their own work for online, so that it wasn't someone else's, because then it was really easy. But it definitely opened up avenues of like, oh, you sneaky little thing, you know? So I think in that aspect, it helped with the whole technology up boost in the last 5 years too, because then you're able to see, well, you have to write your initials now on each page of the homework, because, you know, in future or in past, we've learned that you could do this and get that credit for it. But then we eventually got to over 3 hours and just telling them it's 2 haircuts or 3 haircuts and 3 chemicals a week. So 1.5 things a day and your term sheet will be done. But then when we came full time, trying to convince them that they can get this term sheet done in the 6 hours versus the 3 hours. And then you just had the people who didn't want to come. They didn't want to do nothing. And I think it hurt how people take things, you know what I mean? The growth, it kind of hurt people in their growth, because you had the students that were in high school and they didn't learn that social aspect of it. And now you're trying to teach them social and all this small skills and soft skills that were not as hard. And now you're like starting back over, and everyone's a little bit more touchy-feely here. And so you're just trying to ease people back into society, I guess.
I do want to bounce back to one of the things that you said in there, because I do feel like one of the positives that came from COVID is that we all realized that we are very efficient. You know, with you having that group over there and you were having to teach them this, even you having to break them up. The time period goes from this much time to this much time. And we're like, oh, we're still going to get you all this information before you get out of here. You're still going to know everything. And so we started to move really efficiently. And now they're like, come back for 6 hours. And you're like,
Oh, I don't want to do that.
I think majority of our staff was gone too. So myself and Paula were the ones there. And I believe at the time was Stephanie. And so we just were going, and we had like Lacey in the background helping with online, Trisha in the background, and everyone just trying to help, because there was just so much and not enough prepping time, I guess.
There was no prep time.
We didn't practice this one, Coach.
Yeah. It definitely has impacted probably more than we will ever know this generation of new students as well, because we have an assumption, and maybe that's just how generations work in general, maybe, but we have an assumption on how people interact, how they take certain criticisms, how to, you know, get started on your own things. And this generation's like, you must tell me everything from step A to step B, because the only thing I know how to do is ask the internet. And it spits something back to me, and then that's how I get my answers. They don't know how to necessarily critically think, because they haven't been exposed to having conversations with other people.
Well, I think also with being able to ask the computer and getting all that information right away, a lot of people got used to not knowing everything and trying to learn something. They were like, so they get frustrated more because it's not coming as easy as that was
It's
coming.
just constantly being on.
So then they feel a certain way because they're not grasping like they were when it was coming this way. So I think it's a weird world right now.
JP, I'm going to ask you this question, and then I'm going to ask for you to share any of your COVID insights. But I am curious, how do you feel, or if you felt COVID impacted the way you teach? Like, have you learned anything, or did you learn anything from that time, and have you brought it forward?
No, we really did everything the same. Just like you said, we had to still cram everything in. Learning anything, I have to say, probably be more patient, because like you said, this generation is a lot different. And I still have to remember that. Oh, they were from COVID era.
Mm.
So, and I think also it just reinforced the sterilization process because people, yeah, medical was the essential, but dental, because of all of everything we do, it's aerosol. So our field was more affected by having patients and seeing patients that they didn't realize that.
Mm.
And so going back, and now we have to do a lot more prep before we see a patient, wearing head covers and gowns and going through that, double masking. No other field had to do that. So I just think going back and just learning to just prepare more.
Mm.
But honestly, the teaching aspect of everything, we still did everything the same.
I felt like you were lucky in that aspect if you were able to do everything the same, because I would argue that you probably weren't quite able to do everything the same. So I think it's just because your fields were maybe a little bit different that you definitely couldn't have done everything the same.
No, I mean, I wasn't here for COVID. I was in Texas, Oklahoma, and I was actually manager over this huge casino spa that was run by the Choctaw Indians. And so they considered themselves essential. So we had to open the spa back. We were one of the first ones. And yet as a private massage therapist, we couldn't do anything. But because they had pull, we went back really early. So I had to write a whole protocol from the minute someone walked in the front into the huge gift shop and reception area. We had to put up, these plastic things so that, and then lines and measure. And then I had to take my therapist through, like, this is what you're going to do when the client comes or when the guest comes, and then you do this. And the cleaning protocols have always been the same. And that's what frustrated me, was because, if you just wash your hands and you clean things. So that part didn't change, but the way that we interacted and whatnot. And then Janet talks about how, they had to record things. And so we were probably one of the last programs to stop the hybrid program of 2 days online. And so we split things up to where it was just lecture on those days, the book lecture that we have to do. And then the 2 days they came in, it was just hands-on. But yeah, we probably worked the most intimately with, within our program and whatnot. And it, you just really have to emphasize, we have the masks and we have the gloves and we still use those when necessary. So that part hasn't changed so much. I mean, it was probably easier for the lecture portion and then the hands-on coming in, but
I'm wondering, because you're mentioning the intimacy of that,
right.
which all of our students, I don't want to say all of them are intimate with everyone
Right,
else. It's the wrong thing. But I am saying that that they all wanted to be in school. They wanted to be here. They
Right.
wanted to be around their peers. But when it was time for them to come back, did you guys find that there was any fears with them returning to campus, or do they still have fears that they're holding on to about COVID?
Yes to both of those. I mean, like Cosmo, I don't think anyone thought we were essential until you started watching the news and seeing people's hair. And people are willing to meet you in an alley somewhere. Like, hey, I know you can't do this, but if I paid you $100, and I think that kind of threw us off. And then that hit TikTok. So that's when the online or the TikTok and all that learning by yourself kind of phase got real hard for Cosmo. Now everyone thinks they can do it, but they just sit back and watch them destroy and we'll fix it later, But I think, the essential part, I think a lot of people started realizing different people were, but when you start watching the news and their hair and stuff, I was laughing, honestly.
True.
Right?
I know for my program or the massage program that we could pull people from further away because it was easier for them to commit to 2 days a week coming here, because at the time I know when I first started, we had a student that came all the way from Craig for school. And so that worked out for him, only happened to come, make that long drive 2 days a week. But
Right.
I think the furthest one you guys had was from Durango. I remember Nick
that
trying
was
out.
okay.
Yeah.
That was before I got here. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think it's hard for everyone right now because even the generation getting ready to graduate, the seniors right now, that's my kiddo, and he was in COVID eras, end of middle school, beginning of high school.
Right,
So those
that full
essential time
yeah.
where you're trying to learn and
Oh,
grow,
yeah.
and you have to have that awkwardness to get strong.
Yeah.
So we're hitting that right now. So yes, it's hard to get them coming, or people don't even want to go into the office to work. You know what I mean? Like, why can't I just make money?
And
Like,
sit
why do I
at
have to
home
do
in my
Yeah.
dress shirt?
So I
and
think
I'm in
it's
my pajamas,
going to
yeah.
get a little bit harder before it gets a little bit easier.
Because they
But
were so used to being
they were
at
so
home.
used to
Mhm.
it.
Everyone is at home. Their parents were at
Yeah,
home for the
everyone.
first time.
And it was such an essential time in your growth that
Yeah.
trying to install that, all right, come on, that's not the real world, but like I was trained for this my whole life because I was grounded growing up. So I was like, please. But then I didn't even get to stay home, But I think my generation and us were like, oh yes, I've been training for this my whole life. I told you it would happen, But no.
I still feel like our students, even the ones who are a little bit older now, will still lean on COVID as a
Yeah.
filter.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting. Somebody will be like, I have COVID. And I'm
Yeah.
like, we don't have any restrictions on COVID. And they're like, oh, what do you mean? And I was like, I mean, you're sick. So
Right.
come back when you
Right,
feel
they
better.
freak out and they're like, how dare you? I'm all, listen, we're good,
I
dude.
know,
Like,
we're good now.
you feel okay to be here if you don't, but make that decision on your own. I ain't gonna tell you either way, but watch your hours.
I wasn't teaching when COVID hit. I was still a foreman of a department, but it would seem to me teaching theory over a computer is easy,
Mhm.
but translating it to actual practice and not having someone there to guide you or to practice on, that's a completely different thing.
It's huge.
Yeah, the hands-on part was the hard part.
Yeah.
100%.
And I think for, kudos to everyone who was here and got tossed into the fire, come up with something. Everyone's like, okay. And we just did.
Yeah.
Like the students still left here and they were still hireable.
Well, we all had the
and-
same
Mhm.
goal, so
Yeah.
everyone worked hard and got it going. And then even when some had to go, like they still made sure that we were okay. You know what I mean? Just had each other's back like family. So I think that helped us out a lot.
Yeah. How do you think students view, because obviously how did education change? Like we have our thoughts on how education changed, but how do you think the students think education changed if you were in their shoes?
Well, I still think that they take advantage of things
Yeah.
because I think they got used to taking advantage of things. And so now they're still hoping to follow up with that.
Well, even in high school, you can retake tests. You know what I mean? You didn't like your score, retake it. You didn't turn something in, you have till this deadline, which is unrealistic. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, oh my gosh, I would, yeah, I would have been great then. But then you come here and they're like, what do you mean I can't retake? And I was like, what do you mean you can retake?
Yeah,
like, who got to retake tests? Like, what? But I know because my son gets to, you know what I mean? So it's just the way that they're getting taught in the high school and all that really affects us because they're here and we're here. So just trying to find that even for them. And I think that's where we hit that unbalance somewhere. So just trying to get them to feel all cozy and be like, listen, we're good. You just got to be willing to grow.
Right.
So-
Or take responsibility.
Mhm.
I know a lot of students want you to spoon feed
Mhm.
information and have like all these study guides that follows the test exactly so that they don't really have to read or do. They just want to say, okay, oh, this is going to be the answer.
Yeah. They don't want to look for it.
Yeah.
Like in the libraries when we had to go that one place and then spin it down and find the book. And it's in section blah, blah, blah. All right, But yeah, now they just go, done.
Yeah.
I also wonder though if that's just how education spun off for them during that time. Those educators are trying to teach kindergartners through whatever grade, and they're given the same curriculum that you guys had a curriculum.
Right.
And they're supposed to sit down with these kids for hours
Mhm.
and teach them through the computer, which I know had to be extraordinarily challenging. But I'm wondering if it just came from that, because they knew they had to fill time. They were wanting to make sure that their students had the answers. Maybe it just comes from the fact that we test people too much.
Right.
Like just
That
tests.
there's this, yeah.
So maybe we're teaching the tests too much. But I would assume that during that time, there's probably some huge challenges for educators.
everyone.
Mhm.
Yeah. And some stuck with some things and some let it go, you know.
This sounds weird. I enjoyed COVID. Not that I wanted anybody to get sick. So obviously the pandemic part of COVID, I just didn't like. But I like that kids got to stay home more, and I like that kids got to be with their parents a little bit more. And I liked the challenge of going online and trying to figure it out and still seeing if I could keep my students' attention. At that time, I was in CCR, so I did get the figure it out. I'm like, I'm here for it. And I started doing all kinds of videos and seeing if I could. And the challenges of, can you keep their attention? And the first go round, no, I didn't have their attention, because who wants to sit in front of a computer for that long? And I'm like, I'm a better teacher than that. We're going back to the drawing board. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, we can't do all this. We can do this really, really well. And if we can do this really well, and then they started coming back in, I was like, oh, we just flip off. This is great. And now you have an option. You can either come in here, you can do it online. I was like, this is wonderful. And then I was like, life is too easy. And then life was like, nah, life's not supposed to be that easy.
See, I love that for you, because I am the total opposite of that.
Total opposite experience.
No, I think.
That's because I think it's because of the material. You just have to think about the CCR material.
But I think, yeah, maybe. But I just think in life, like family, I love that for people who gotta hang out with their family more. But I think besides that, I think that's the only thing good that maybe came out.
Yeah.
Only because everything else got crazy, and it was already crazy. But I love the fact that people gotta be with family, because family's important.
Yeah.
But then you have
That's
the family that
literally
couldn't
that's
be with family, like my
Right.
grandparent
Or
who
the ones
passed
that lived
away.
alone, and so
And we
then
couldn't
we're
be
still
there
dealing
because.
with
But
people who are
I wouldn't go back to COVID.
I mean, I'm not going back.
No, I wouldn't even say
But
hello.
It was weird too, like you were saying essential workers earlier. Like my husband was deemed as an essential worker. I'm like, dude, you work at Lowe's.
over there.
My mom was at Walmart too, absolutely.
You're not
At
essential.
Walmart.
You know, like what are you, like who's deeming essential workers? But apparently, like, Lowe's went through like a huge
Boom.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Because everybody
Good for
was at
them.
home. They were like, ooh,
We're gonna do all these projects.
I'm like, you do those projects.
Right?
And it was a way
Absolutely.
for the whole family to get out
That's
and go.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
COVID though, I wouldn't go back. I'm not
Oh
saying
no.
that.
No, thank
I do
you.
feel like I learned some things from COVID though.
Absolutely. I
Google
don't think
Classroom was our friend.
right. I don't think I ever went on the email, on the web so much in my
Yeah.
life. As a Cosmo, I was hit there when I needed to for grades and such and that, but to be on there and learn how to do the simple tasks most people did. I do hair for a living. I don't know, like how you turn it on. There's a thing back here. Okay, it's point A. You know what I mean? But now I'm like, oh yeah, let me show you what's up. So that part I do like.
I
Cause
think
like
it
grew.
export her paper.
It did make us expand what we could do.
I think it did.
Right. Took us out of
Did
our
help
comfort
growth
zone, for
that
sure.
part for sure.
And
I
the
think-
resilience.
Yeah.
And
It showed us that
patience.
too. Yeah, we are
Yeah.
patient. We are resilient.
Patience.
We can figure it out. We're tough.
Every
Right.
gray hair worth it.
Every gray hair was worth it. And
Boom.
now we're stronger than we
Boom.
were then. Still got some crazies out there, but we can string them along.
Getting closer.
Does anybody have anything else they want to add and partake into the conversation? COVID. How it
So on
changed.
COVID, it's been real.
So long.
Deuces.
COVID. It's been real.
Bye.